Well, hey everybody. My name is Jared Malott, and most of you that know me have seen my face before for about the last 5 years or so. Uh, After every Colts game, I make a little 5 to 7 minute video where kind of tell you what's been going on in the game. So I try to keep pretty balanced, tell you why the Colts won, why they lost, who played well, who played poorly. Um, we go over what kind of happened around the AFC and Uh, so I'm still going to be creating content for Stampede Blue as a Vox Media employee. Over the summer, I was set to have a meeting with someone that wanted to help make Stampede Blue podcasts better. And in the process, I realized rather than rely on either a platform to support me, right, like Stampede Blue and my podcast endeavor, or a co-host that I would rather try to do it on my own. Um, so obviously here I am recording the initial episode here. Wanted to tell you exactly why. I had a co-host for Afternoon Pancakes for 2 years. Stephen Reed's got young kids, one of whom's in softball, and he's coaching now. So his availability is kind of waned. And rather than fight uh, his availability and my work schedule, he's got a little show he'll be doing, and he's still appearing on podcasts, and I'm going to strike out on my own. And I came up with the name The Coltist, um, kind of a play on words because, fan bases are often cult-like, and the Colts are no different. And I certainly appreciate all the support as I transition. I'm just going to basically post probably about a 30-minute podcast a week, show you my face, sit here and talk to you about what's going on. So yeah, I have a little bit of notes here, things you want to kind of go over. First of all, who am I? Why me? So way back in the day, about a decade ago, I went back to school and got a degree in multimedia design and development. So frankly, I went to school to do this. And then started writing about the Colts with my one of my best friends, somebody I've known for a decade now, Brett Mock. Um, we worked on Coltzilla, Colts Authority, um, Indie Sports Hub, and then about 5 or 6 years ago, Brett got asked to take over as the managing editor at Stampede Blue, and he took me along with him. Always who you know, right? Um, and I got to sort of step into a role you typically have to volunteer to do for years. Got a little paycheck out of it, and as I've said, I'm now on my my sixth NFL season as a Vox Media employee. So, in addition to holding a full-time job for the past 5 years, I've also moonlighted, I suppose, as a journalist for Vox Media. Probably unbeknownst to a lot of people, it's not necessarily something that's going to mean anything to anybody here in the middle of in Indiana. Nobody cares. Um, you know, um, so I decided to strike out on my own. Um, I've sort of, in addition to writing about the Colts, doing video, doing a podcast. Um, Frankly, I'll tell you why I've actually gotten into coaching and am gonna train and I want to play football again. So basically, I feel like the Colts could have won that game against the Bills. Obviously, missed a couple field goals too, and lost by 3. So definitely could have won. But I felt that there was 4 or 5 times during the game where the coaches had an opportunity to impact the outcome. And then I think about 6 days later, and I can be wrong, it could have been a different amount of time, but a few days later, I'm watching the Pacers play, and I think they were down 6 with about 6.5 or 7 minutes left. And Rex Bjorkgren, the new Pacers coach, left his players in too long, left the starters in too long, and they got burnt out and they got blown out. And I realized right then I want to get involved in coaching because I really feel like there's just a handful of decisions in a game that really impact the outcome. And I'd like to think that I can identify those. So I put the word out on social media that, hey, I'd like to get involved in coaching. And it turns out an old colleague of mine, Eric Anderson, who's been coaching for the better part of 20 years and has won multiple state titles at the high school level and multiple league championships in semi pro, hit me up and said, hey, I'm going to need a quarterback coach. And uh, so that's probably a really good place to start. So let me tell you about my first year coaching football. So in late December, I was sort of given the keys to the to the stable, I suppose. Um, and so I got access to Huddle, which is a website where you can upload videos similar to like a YouTube, but it's for athletes, right? So you upload your film. So we met at a field on the near west side of Indianapolis. We just refer to it as Tibbs. It's actually a field that I'm assuming the city built when the Colts hosted the Super Bowl, when the city hosted the Super Bowl. Um, and I'm assuming either the Patriots or Giants practiced at this really nice turf field that's a part of a public space. It's on the property of the old Indiana State Hospital. It's like an old mental hospital grounds. But anyway, we met out there in the middle of the winter, and I'm going to name names until people tell me not to name names. So, first thing I meet Xavier Tinnitus, who played quarterback in high school. A little undersized, about 5'10", had a short stops arm, did have a little bit of touch, and I really do believe probably would have been our best option at quarterback. Um, on that same day, I also met Wyatt Hall, who was a little rough to take instruction and ultimately a loose cannon, probably a better body on the football field than a quarterback, more like a tight end or like a fullback. Um, Xavier, I believe, broke his foot skiing a week after I met him in the winter. And Wyatt got stepped on in practice and then took a job in Texas and left us. So we're on our third quarterback like right away. Um, and the Xavier Grimble hit me up and said, "Hey man, he was wide receiver. Hey, and kick returner. Hey, I'll play quarterback." Turns out Xavier Grimble played at Division 1, 2, and 3, and is now back in Texas. He's probably going to play on Sunday. I'm telling you, Xavier Grimble, Molon, Mississippi. Remember that name? Alcorn State, University of Illinois, Amherst College. Um, so he and I meet up. Not the ideal quarterback, still undersized, like 5'10", 180 pounds. Not a very good arm, but above average. Above, it's tough. Above average. Good velocity, not a lot of touch. Not your ideal quarterback, but we could have made it happen. And on the same around the same time, Lenny Campbell, who'd played tight end, so a little bigger boy, says, "Coach, I'd like to try to play quarterback." And I thought, well, let's just have them meet up at the same time and see who's got the better of it. And then Lenny moved away, and Dex came to us and basically told us, "Hey, I'm getting looked at playing at the next level. Um, I'm gonna need to take most of my reps at wide receiver and kick returner, the positions I'll actually play." Um, so I guess we're on our fifth quarterback when Sidney Moore, who was our sort of a slot receiver for us, a lefty, stepped up. He played like quarterback in flag football league for a year, I think, was about all the experience he had. Um, and the first about 4 games, I was still kind of getting my feet wet as a coach. I had just been instructed to bring along a quarterback, um, and we had 2 scrimmages, and the second regular season game during the course of the game, I felt like our coaches lost composure, and I kind of had to step in and take over sort of play calling. And for the rest of the season, after the second game, I was the primary play caller and offensive coordinator. Now there was restrictions placed on me. I wasn't allowed to have a motion in my plays, and I wasn't allowed to create new plays. For the simple reason that motion confused players we didn't meet often enough. It's semi-pro football, right? Battleground Football League. Indiana Cutters out of Bloomington, Indiana. Um, no motion, limited motion, and no new plays. And with that restriction, I was 4-2. Beat their, was basically one bad blown touchdown call away from being like 5-1 as a play caller. And the week the playoffs started, my wife showed symptoms of COVID, and I missed the playoff game. I'd have been heartbroken if things would have been a little more dreamboaty, but they just weren't. Um, we weren't able to really get our feet in the ground and practice. Weather was not very cooperative all year. Um, Man, and I think that's probably about where I'll leave it. We really our practice and preparation during the year was not great. Um, but I learned a lot, and ultimately, what ended up happening is um, towards the end of the season, my wife kind of threw some resistance bands at me, and I started just doing some bicep curls and some wrist curls and shoulder presses and that turned into doing rotational movement with my arm. And I played football my whole life from third grade on, and wanted to play quarterback. Wasn't allowed to play quarterback in high school because I didn't play little league in Mooresville. So I didn't know the offense as well as some of the kids that would have played in that league, in their little league and run their little pro form. Um, and then I went to Purdue and tried to walk on and was sort of a clipboard holder for a season, and then got told to gain a little weight and you come play fullback, and just I didn't want to do that. I wanted to play like quarterback. I didn't want to play fullback. And then I went in the Marine Corps and played a little bit when I was in the Marine Corps, and then came home, played a bunch of flag football. And like I said, I've been writing about it for a long time. Scouted quarterbacks for a couple years, Stampede Blue for a few years. We sold a draft guide. So for a few years, I scouted quarterbacks, and like I said, then I just coached quarterbacks and was an offensive coordinator and play caller, and a winning one, right? Now I want to keep coaching, so I'd like to take a head coaching job. After my experience at this level, uh, I'm the kind of person that is a head coach because I have composure. I don't let the moment get to me, mistakes don't get to me. I'm not losing my cool, and I'm not giving up on my team in a moment of need. I'm steady. I may be shaking and quivering. My jaw may be quivering, and I may be prone to cry. Um, but I'm prepared in the moment to make the right decision. So I'd like to coach. My ultimate dream, obviously, I've said this out loud for a while now, but I suppose saying it in front of a camera and putting it on the internet is like a whole different thing. But I'm just one of those people. I have to have lofty goals, otherwise I get bored and give up. And I think if you know me, one of the things you've noticed is I don't finish things I start. That's frequently because I'll get started on it, and then I'll realize I can do it, and then I'm like, I don't really want to do it. Now that I know I can do it, it's like whatever. So I have to have irrational goals. And my irrational goal at this point in my life is I want to be the first ever NFL and NBA head coach at the same time. So uh, I don't know that it'll ever happen. But there's a program called Soldiers to Sidelines, and I have a feeling that I can end up on an NFL sideline, and who knows, really. I have a bachelor's degree. I've got experience in leadership. Obviously, I was in a Marine Corps. Football is a big part of my life. I wouldn't mind coaching at the high school level, um, but more importantly, I think um, I finally am in a position where I have like a normal 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and um, my wife wants to start a pit bull rescue, and I need something to do physically. Again, it's got to be a lofty goal, otherwise I'll get bored. So I'm gonna train as a quarterback with the goal of being like a backup quarterback, playing semi-pro. But obviously the lofty goal, right? Again, I have to have like a lofty goal, otherwise I'll just give up. It's things are too easily achievable are not interesting. But I have 4 years of eligibility. I don't know if I'm on age allowed to play, but I need to do it for my physical well-being. I need to eat better, do cardio, lift weights. Why not train as a quarterback, right? So you can see football is like a huge part of my life. So that's kind of like my why is it's been a very stable thing in my life for most of my life. It's also been fruitful for me. I've been being basically paid to talk about it for like 5 years. So that's why I'm kind of doing a podcast on my own. And then I wanted to talk about the actual money side of what happened here with Stampede Blue. And if I get and lose this opportunity with Stampede Blue to write because I'm talking about the money, then so be it. I'll still produce this podcast on my own. But basically, I was producing about 30 episodes a year, about 6, 7 months out of the year. Steven and I would get on here and record about a 45 to an hour long podcast, 45 minutes to hour long podcast. And we put it up on Megaphone. I had no control over the ads that were placed, but I had to place like 5 or 6 ads for my podcast, which is I won't have that same sort of control. I have a similar lack of control on YouTube, but I'll care less. It's mine. Um, I'll care more about the content. And then because I had a co-host, I was concerned about length. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I can just talk length if I want. And then the biggest thing is like, say, during the season you produce an episode a week, right? And when I was getting paid once a month, and again, I'm in a unique position to get paid to do what I do. But in addition to my writing responsibilities and my video production requirements, um, the podcast was only say making like $7, $8 an episode. So if you think about trying to coordinate time with someone every week for 7, 8 months out of the year, and lay down a podcast with somebody, it's gonna be real hard to do that. Um, it's just true. When it's not really financially, Steven refused to take money, which love Steven Reed, man. He's a great guy. Um, but when you got someone trying to meet with you to tell you what to do, and then they don't show up, and you know what I mean, they kind of put me and Brett in an awkward situation where Brett's hadn't really had time to listen to your podcast, so I really can't tell you what you need to do with it. They kind of want me to, I just put out podcasts on my own, no heart, no, but no harm, no foul. And then we want to talk about why the Coltist. fan bases are often considered cult-like in the NFL. Colts are no different. It just seems flows off the tongue. The Coltist. You can follow the podcast at the Coltist on Twitter. So TheColtist, and then on Instagram at TEH, like the meme of the Coltist. Um, but yeah, it'll be a weekly podcast. I'll sit here, put it up on YouTube. I could pull the audio off of the recording and upload it to be distributed like a podcast. But yeah, Colts Colts centric, football centric, by someone who coaches football. I'm training as a quarterback. I have coached quarterbacks. I've scouted quarterbacks. I've been an offensive coordinator. I've been a primary play caller. I play NCAA football revamped. Madden's doo doo. Um, but you can still get these hands. And then, yeah, really, football is just kind of my life. You can ask my wife, you know what I mean? That rhymed unintentionally. But yeah, Coltist is a podcast about Colts, about football, about life by someone whose life is football. And then, like I said, you expect about a weekly episode. I'm gonna try to give it to you, 30 to 45 minutes, solid, easy. Subject, like I said, subject matter, you know it. And then I wanted to wait until after Thursday Night Football. I wanted to kind of see the product on the field and see if um, the penalty for excessive celebration, that tacky crap, if I was gonna actually poo-poo my game watching. It was not OPI in the end, by the way. That was just a really good football game. Hats off to Dallas and Tampa Bay for starting the season off well. Defending champs look game, and that's always scary. Um, Tom Brady looked timeless. I mean, he had some turnovers. It wasn't pretty. Welcome back, Dak Prescott. Dallas looks like they've got weapons all over the place. I didn't know if I really liked their game plan. Um, and then to kind of turn my head away from Thursday Night Football to talk about the off season, um, preseason. Um, I want to start by saying the things that matter. I'm disappointed with any member of the Colts who's not vaccinated at this point. Um, there's not any conversations left to have or studies to read. It's just plain ignorance. You've gotten vaccines your whole life. You had to have an annual physical to play sports in high school and college, and you had to get vaccines. And there were no excuses. If you didn't have vaccines, you didn't play. Um, this is one of those vaccines. I'm vaccinated. I had COVID. I don't have any, like, at least I haven't noticed any uh, long term problems, right? And I have friends when I coached football that got COVID and weren't vaccinated and have long term problems, like gut problems. One of them had a um, blood clot in his lungs. So, like I said, you can get vaccinated. You probably I was working from home when when I got COVID. So I was vaccinated. Johnson and Johnson, was working from home. Got COVID because my wife got exposed at a family event. I don't have any long term health problems, but I got buddies that refused to get vaccinated that got COVID. I got elders. I got guys my age. So like I said, it's you probably gonna get it. I would be get vaccinated. That's kind of my attitude about it. Like you're probably gonna get COVID, you might as well just get vaccinated. It's not it's 100 times more deadly than the flu minimum. Anyway, so like I said, this is a life podcast. So if you hear subject matter that you're not comfortable with, maybe this podcast isn't for you, and that's just fine. I'm trying not to curse, but I don't feel like get vaccinated is political, and turning the words "get vaccinated" into a political argument is ignorant. I'm over it. In terms of the Colts, I feel like first of all, Quiddy Pay could very well be like the tie that binds for the Colts. I hate using cliches, and I don't want to overstate his importance as it refers to the defense because he is a rookie and he could just get benched. He could just get outplayed. But he looked good in the preseason, and I think he's a hard worker and he has a great story. Um, in terms of Carson Wentz, again, it's really hard for me to not just display utter disappointment based on him not being vaccinated. But apparently, he's looked like he's in midseason form here in the preseason, and outside of having to miss some time again because of his vaccination status due to being exposed to COVID, somebody with COVID. I don't know. I don't know what the reality is that continuity wins, and just like tonight, um, Dallas wasn't really able to establish the run game because they were without Zach Martin. The Colts going into a game against Seattle, a Pete Carroll coached team with Russell Wilson at the quarterback position, is going to be a tough out. Um, with Carson Wentz and Quentin Nelson missing time recently, with Eric Fisher being a question mark. Um, I'm, of course, concerned the Colts will end up in a similar spot that Dallas did tonight, down a linchpin tackle. The problem is that that's your blind side, so it automatically puts your quarterback on roller skates. Um, and that just means that a quarterback that you don't want to make him win you a football game is going to be frequently put in a spot where he's going to have to win you a football game. And that's the exact kind of scenario you want to avoid early in a season. If at all possible, you want to keep, you and I say you, I'm thinking of like you as like an organization or really a coaching staff. So, coach, putting on the coach hat. Um, you really want to keep your quarterback in boring situations. And what I mean is, like, you don't want to put a bunch of pressure on him consistently. You want it to come, because it's coming in waves anyway, but like, you want to try to control the tempo and pace of the game. Um, I tend to want to play hurry up because I think there's multiple ways to win football games. So this comes into more like a philosophical conversation where um, there are lots of schools of thought on how to foundationally win. Lots of organizations feel like you win up front and you win in the trenches. That doesn't work at all levels. You'd think it does, but it just doesn't work at all levels. Um, you're not going to have size at every level, every stop you go to. I think it's more speed and strength and conditioning and flexibility and agility. Things you can absolutely control are what wins games. And when I watch the Colts offense, one of the things that I feel like I see them trying to do is get their athletes running at full speed with the ball in their hands in space. Um, and, you know, this week you'll see Paris Campbell, you'll see Hines in space running. And, Taylor's going to get his. Mac's going to get some touches too. Your tight ends are going to be relevant red zone targets. So yeah, I feel like the Colts have an opportunity to absolutely win this game. I do not expect the Colts to win this game, primarily because Carson Wentz, Fisher, Nelson, all of Miss Kelly, all of like had to miss time and recently. So you just don't have as many laps in the pool as you'd want to start a season. I'm not down on the Colts. I'm not sitting here telling you sky's falling. Carson Wentz is a failure, a bad leader. I'm not Greg Doyle. Um, I'm not Greg Doyling it. But hindsight's 2020, and so what I did express was like my disappointment that he hasn't been that my quarterback hasn't been vaccinated and hasn't come out there and just say, "I got vaccinated. It was the right thing to do. You should get done too." You see how easy that was for me to say? It's killed like over 500,000 people. What data do you need to see? So like I said, when you can't make that decision, it's like $1 billion organization and he's the face of it. It's true, right? Got great men, great people behind him. And then you wonder like how long will his questionable decision making um how long will it go before it bites us? Literally. And I think that if he has to miss an important game because, it's like so many weeks in the season he still doesn't get vaccinated and he gets exposed and it's a game you gotta have. And now you're having to, throw Eason or Ellinger to the Wolves. We'll come back to, man, Jared did point that out at the beginning of the year that hey, it's something as simple. And I get it, a lot of people don't want to get political. I'm not trying to get political. What I'm trying to say is it's a very simple decision. A lot of people are dying of COVID-19 and there's a vaccine that can lessen the effects of that. On you're a professional athlete. This thing attacks your heart, your lungs, your brain, right? Doesn't seem like a difficult decision. And the fact that I'm having to sit here, dedicate time on my first episode of my podcast to like calling him out, right? Leads me to believe that like there's some questionable decision making from him down the road. Like tonight, for example, immediately as soon as I said that, what flashed in my brain was like Tom Brady waving off Bruce Arians. And I get it. It was on like a drive that Brady's probably executed a million times, and maybe he does know better there. But you could see a similar situation where a Carson Wentz waves off a Frank Reich, whose decision making, sometimes you've been like, right? So now you have two people, a head coach and a quarterback, that whose decision making you've questioned, and now you can see how the Titanic sunk. Um, so yeah, I think the Colts could absolutely win, but the Colts are notorious slow starters. Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll are two football minds and figures that you don't want to start slow against. Um, yeah, wear a mask, get vaccinated, all that stuff. Have a good week.